Welcome back to the Art and Yoga and Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Kira Whitaker. So in today's episode, I sit down and I talk with my friend and our podcast producer, Cait Howard. Me and Cait talk about entrepreneurship. We talk about sharing space as a female who owns and operates a business out of their home primarily. Also, what it's like to share that space with your family, how we have boundaries around entrepreneurship and motherhood. We talk about some of the struggles of this day and age around social media and self-comparison, and so much more. So tune into today's video and sit down with me and Cait while we have a really great conversation around all things female entrepreneurship and work-life balance. Welcome back to the Art and Yoga and Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Kira Whitaker, and today we have my good friend and one half of my podcast production team, Cait Howard.
Hi.
Hi, Cait.
It's so fun to be here.
I'm so
Come
happy
to the
you're
farm.
here. She is my first interview at the farm. I mentioned this in the life update episode that we did, that it's something that I've wanted to do, just to be able to host people here. And there's so many brilliant, and I know you know this, so many amazing and brilliant people just in Middle Tennessee where we live. And so it won't be every interview, but when we can make it happen, I'd love to be able to have people here. So Cait came down today to help with our setup. As you all know, I haven't had a mic for a long time. We think it was error. We think it was a user error.
We think she needed to restart her computer.
That was it. That was it. 5 podcast mics and a lot of wires later, it was me. I'm the problem. But when we finally figured out a day that Cait and our schedules would align, I was like, hey, when we were on our Zoom meeting the other day, we had such a great conversation way outside of podcasts. It was just about life and owning business and having kids and making it all work and what wasn't working. And I was like, would you want to do a podcast episode? And she was, of course, so kind and was like, yeah,
we'll test out.
We'll do a
test run on the new setup.
Yeah. So before we jump in, a little bit more about Cait. So Cait and her husband, Philip, own Amplify Boutique, which is a podcast production agency for small business owners. They also live outside of Nashville. Cait has got 3 little girls that are beautiful, and I love seeing them on social media. How old are they? Because they're little.
4, 2, and 1.
4, 2, and 1. Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Whole new respect for Cait.
Yeah.
And so some of the things we're going to cover today is just the honest, real, behind the scenes of what it's like to own businesses, but also be the primary caretaker of our families and our children, to have spouses that are also small business owners. That's another thing that Cait and I have in common is we do business with our husbands. So we have a lot of church and state, and I think both of our households. And then I've got some what I think are good questions to ask Cait, just because I want to pick your brain. So with that, you ready to dive in?
Let's do it.
All right. So something that me and Cait really dove into the other day, and I won't go into all of it because some of it was her and I just talking as friends, but it was us just talking about honestly just managing it all. And I think that's something that we talk about often is most of what we see is on social media. We're all on social media of some sort. If you're not, we really, really commend you. And we want to be
jealous of you
100,000%. But whether it be, Facebook or Pinterest or Instagram or whatever it is, there's this constant influx of how well everyone is doing. Right. And everybody's, pumpkins that they carved and the awesome lunch that they made their kid or their clean kitchen. And so there's just this onslaught constantly. And I think as females, because most females, I know not all, but most females are kind of the gatekeeper of the home.
Yep.
And there's a constant influx of perfectionism, whether that's reality, or not, it doesn't matter. We see it, we ingest it the way we do. It seems like it's real. And it puts a lot of pressure, I think, on women and especially moms, because as you and I talk about all the time, most days are me trying to spin all of the plates in the air and not drop a plate.
Yep.
Or see if I can just handle all of the plates, because all of them have a sense of urgency. All of them are important. And most of the plates that we're juggling are not plates I get to set down.
Yeah.
And whether you have kids that are younger, like Cait's or mine, that are middle school and almost done with elementary school, I don't see it. It hasn't seemed to fade. It seems pretty consistent that this is the world we live in.
Yeah.
So one of the first things that I told Cait before we turned on the mics that I wanted to ask her was, how do you balance it? Like, if I were like, what is a day in the life like with you? And this is without the strep throat. This is without, you know what I mean? But like, this is without the catastrophes happening. Yeah. We all know it's unpredictable with kids, but what is just a normal day of having 3 small girls, owning your own business, running a household, but also working with your spouse? Like, what is that like? What's a Monday like for you?
Yeah. Well, and honestly, I don't know how people do it that have like normal corporate jobs. Like now that like being up, because I've never experienced, well, I had a corporate job when Emma was really little, but that was like COVID. I just wouldn't even compare that. But people who are raising children with their normal corporate job, like I don't know how they do it, like with the time that you have. I mean, and even being self-employed, the one thing, it's a lot, but it's at least flexible, you know? So yeah, like, and I want to say too, like we didn't necessarily set up our life like to be the easiest, but we definitely set it up to be what we want. And so we spend a lot of time together as a family, which is what we want to do, but that can be really hard too. So like in the mornings we get up, I want to be the type of person that gets up at 5 a.m. and like has my me time before I know.
Don't we all?
Before the kids get up, right? Because I see the benefit of that, but I almost 99.9% of the time choose to sleep. So, and in this season of life, I have a 1-year-old. So she still wakes up like in the middle of the night, and she's been waking up at like 5:30, you know? And so I'm doing the best I can, but again, in my perfect world, or in what I feel like social media makes us believe we need to do, is we need to be at 5 a.m. I'm not. So I get up with the girls, and Philip actually, the way we kind of split it out, he is the one that does get up at 5 a.m. I don't know how he does it because he stays up later than me, but he like gets all the girls' lunches for the day. He makes sure like everything's put together and ready for them to go to school. So he like takes care of that piece in the morning, which is amazing because that's something that like I just am not getting up early enough to do. And then when I get up, I'm getting up with the girls. We're hanging out with them for like an hour. We get them dressed. I get them ready. We get them in the car. I'm always on duty to take to school. So I take them over to school. And we've talked about this, our childcare, you know, because they're all in childcare, or if they were all in daycare, they would all be in at the same time based on their ages, right? None of them are in school yet. So daycare is 1,000,000% unaffordable. Like we cannot afford real daycare for 3 small children. I mean, it would be double our mortgage to pay for daycare. And so we have it worked out where we found, again, like what works best for our family. And so financially, and just in that we don't necessarily want our girls in daycare all day long because we don't have to. Yeah. And so we do Mother's Day outs. We do like our parents' day outs is what they call them. And we do like a mixture of those. So we have about 5 to 6 hours, depending on the day, of like work time that we can just like drop them off, come home. And that's what we have for work. So, and we pretty much, I mean, we've kind of created our schedule and figured out in the business, you know, how we can make that work and fit that in. And then we work, he has a garage office. So he built his office in the garage and I'm all the way upstairs in our room. So we're like separated by 2 floors. Yeah. And so that helps. Like you
aren't sharing an office space all day long.
No, we are pretty much separate the whole day, except maybe like lunch. We are like in the kitchen at the same time and we'll like pass by, but like we're talking on Slack, which is what I talk to all. So for those of you, Philip actually works in the cut, like we work together in our company. So he's the audio engineer, the video editor, and I run like everything else. And then we have other support people, but just like I talk to all my other support people on Slack, like I talk to him on Slack. Yeah. You know, so we go back and forth all day there. But no, we're pretty much separate. And I think the other thing, and we can get into that, but so then the girls get home and then it's pretty much like I have it blocked off on my calendar, like from 3 until bedtime, like it is family time. Unless something just like randomly comes up, like I do not take calls. I try my best not to work again, unless there's like an emergency, which there's typically not too many podcast emergencies, but if something happens, like we will take care of it. And then that's not, but you know, this season for us, and this is something too that I feel like on social media, and sometimes maybe we feel this way because we're in this world, but like entrepreneurship is really glamorized and is really made to be this like just, you know, amazing lifestyle. And like you would just have all the freedom to do whatever you want. And you just make money all the time.
And I work 2 hours a week.
Yeah. And that's a whole nother story of like the pressure that it puts on you. But we have been in this season and we are just now coming out of it like 3 years in. We work every night after the girls go down because we only have those 5 hours during the day. Yeah. And then we work and we catch up and we get things done at night, which I think a lot of people do, even if they're not entrepreneurs, like even, people like in corporate, like I think you catch up. So it's been a lot of hustle, like around just having all of that. I think for me, the biggest challenges that come with their ages right now and is that we are both in the business. So we both like, it depends on both of us. We each play our part. Like if Philip is not doing his job, you know, we're in a bind. If I'm not doing my job, we're in a bind, which can be hard as parents because you don't necessarily have the default parent then at that point. Yeah. You know, and I would say like, even still, like, I think I would probably consider me to be the more flexible default parent, even between the two of us. And so like, I'm the one, like if the girls are sick or they need to go to the doctor or they're home, like it's usually me with them. But I would say like being with their ages and just things that come up, that can be really difficult working together and both being involved. I think my goal, like if I were to think about like my 5-year goal is to set up the business so that like, it doesn't depend on either of us. Yeah. Like us being there helps make it better, but like it can run without us too. So that's kind of my goal, just because I think from like a sustainability standpoint, you would have to be able to take time off, you know? Yeah. Yeah. It is tricky. But that's where those pros and cons come in. Like you said, like when you were saying, you know, we've built a life to where our family life can kind of fluidly exist amongst work. That's what we've always done. That was one reason I quit my corporate job as a nurse, is because when Ori was little or when he was sick or when there was a play at Mother's Day out, I couldn't block my own schedule off. I think the biggest thing is knowing, like you were saying, those seasons. Like you're in a season with small kids to where you're going to have to work at night. I remember when my kids were little, especially Ori, because I started the studio when Ori's 1. Yeah. And then we had Will, they're 2.5 years apart. So Willow right after. And it was the same thing. We did Mother's Day out because I could not afford daycare. Yep. And so it was Mother's Day out. And then we had a college girl come in 2 days a week and she would help with them. And so that gave me 4 days, but it's still not a 10-hour work day. Right. It's, 8 to 2 or 9 to 2 with Mother's Day out. And so I would do as much as I could. And then I had to work at night. Like there were things, because when you are the business, there is no one that's going to take that over. It either gets done or it doesn't. Yeah. And we still, Boone has really, really great boundaries, which his business is very different than mine, even though I help with his. I mean, he does the day-to-day operations with that. But there's still nights where like that course has to go out or that has to go out to a client. And I'm on my computer till 10 o'clock at night. Yeah. But I think the offset of that is I got to pick the kids up from school. Yes. Do you know what I mean? Like exactly. I got to chunk my day off to where that 3 to 7 was available. And I got to be their main caretaker. I got to take them, pick them up from school, take them to soccer. But then again, the other side of the sword is where our corporate friends over, let's say the holidays, get to clock out for 2 weeks and use their paid vacation time and walk away and truly walk away.
we don't ever do that. And maybe there's some, I'm not saying that we, made the mold of small business owners and female business owners. I can't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I always say that my business is like my third child. And so it's, even though I want to say that I'm, walking away, and I'm still thinking about it. I'm not completely disattached when we take time off. Yeah. But there is that yin and yang. There's the pros and cons. And I think that's the most important thing. And that's what a lot of younger women and moms that I talk to that do talk about wanting to start some sort of something so that they can be with their kids more, so that they can have flexibility, or so that maybe they just have wiggle room to see what they like. They just want to creatively explore.
Yep.
I don't always think that they're getting an honest depiction of what it's like in the social media world of entrepreneurship, because it's just not real. I mean, maybe it is for a very small few, but that's not the majority of people, because and then there's even the conversations like, well, of course it's not in the beginning. I'm 12 years in. My husband has owned his business for 20 years.
Yeah.
And I am here to tell you, I am almost a veteran in this game of a small business that only has a handful of help.
Yep.
And we grind, and it's not cute, and it's not glamorous. It is messy, and there are deadlines, and there's stress, and there's a lot that goes into it. And that's a decade in.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to love the journey of it.
Yeah. And I don't have a private plane, if anybody's wondering. Cait drove her car here. She did not
fly in.
She did not take her private helicopter to my farm. Let it be known. My pilot was busy today. Yeah. So I'm sorry that we couldn't make that happen, but next time.
Yeah. They couldn't come pick me up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you, because your girls, I know they're in Mother's Day out, but then they're also home in the afternoons, and you have to work in the evenings and stuff. You and your husband's offices are both at home. You and your husband run the company together. Yeah. So how do you manage and juggle being Cait, that is the CEO of this big business, and how it's because my listeners might not know, how many clients do you have?
We're like inching to 35.
Okay. So that's full management of podcasts. That means she does the production, they do the edits, they do all of my social media stuff. So this is not like my friend who has a hobby that edits my they are a full production company. It's a pretty big company at this point. So knowing all those things that you juggle, how do you create boundaries, I guess, around your headspace of, this is me as the CEO of this company, this is me as his business partner, and then now it turns off, and now I'm immediately segueing into mom and the person who's doing bath time and the person who is his wife. How do you hop back and forth between church and state, since it's all in your house?
Literally.
Or do you?
Yeah, I don't, I think so it has changed and ebbed and flowed. And I feel like for us, we have gone through so many changes so fast that we're still kind of wrapping our head around it. Because if you think about the timeline, we became parent. We, had Emma in 2019. In 2020, COVID happened. So like that's, a whole thing. In 2021, I left my full-time job to go full-time in the business. He left his full-time job to come full-time into the business with me. We had Olivia. Then we were full-time together in the business, and then we had Remy. So that we are just like
drinking from a fire hose.
So much happening. So really we have just been doing whatever we have to do to survive.
Yeah.
But I do know, and I think Philip is so much better about this than me. Philip, I would say. And
if you're editing this, Philip, you're being affirmed by your wife. Please take note.
Yeah. You were being affirmed. I think he is so much better. We talk about this at compartmentalizing than I am. 1,000,000%. He can just have all the separate things in his brain and keep them separate. And so he definitely, when we're talking about something and he needs to give me criticism or feedback or anything like that, he's like, okay, I want to be clear. This is not husband and wife Philip and Caitlin. This is business, Philip and Caitlin. Like this has nothing to do. Yeah, no. And it happened. Like, yeah, because I mean, and I have to realize that because there are things that need to be said that it's like, this has nothing to do with like our marriage.
That is
right?
why me and my husband cannot work. But I would immediately go, what I'm hearing is you don't love me anymore.
I know.
I don't know if I could do. I mean,
it's so hard.
I'm sure you get there, but that would be so difficult
and I
for
tell
me.
him too, and so here's the other thing. I hired someone to help be the in between us too. So that because at the beginning it was just me and him. Yes. But yeah, now there's a buffer. So there's someone else who is telling him the deadlines, who's telling him what needs to be done, who's telling him this is coming up and it's not just me.
Yeah.
Like that helps a ton because I will say for me, I have this whole story in my head of like, the resentment that he's going to feel for working for, that I like, this is my business that he came to like support me in. And we made that decision because for him, what we would pay an audio engineer would be like way more than he was making.
And he went to school for it, right?
He went to school for it.
One of the best programs in the United States.
Yes. Yep. So he... and he had like his experience in it. And so it just made the most sense.
Yeah.
But for me to know that like, this is my business, he's supporting me. There's just a lot of feelings there that, I have to like really separate from and, not let my like own emotions and feelings get into it.
Yeah.
So it can be hard, but it does feel very fluid. Like it does feel like everything just like flows into each other. Like we talk about clients a lot, like things pop in and out all day long, like that we're talking back and forth on, even if the girls are there, so, but it's kind of fun too, because I feel like for some women who maybe have their own businesses and maybe their husbands aren't involved or whatever, like it can be hard to like explain to them like what they do or like what it looks like.
Right.
And so it's kind of nice because he completely understands day in and day out what my life, like what it looks like for the most part. I mean, he doesn't completely get it because I'm doing like sales and client relationships and like things like that. And so I have a lot more contact than he does. So that's like a big difference. And I do think in the business, we are so separate. Like I was talking to another couple who they work together and they're very similar in what they do in the business. And that can be really hard where like what we do is very separate. Like
there's not a ton of overlap.
No, there's not a ton of overlap. He has his wheelhouse. I have my wheelhouse and our wheelhouses like come together and complement each other. So I think that's helpful too. We're not like playing in the same sandbox necessarily all day long.
Not having to share all of your toys.
No.
Yeah. I have people that have asked me over the years about, because you mentioned that it in a for what feels healthy to y'all is pretty fluid. Like you can be, taking care of the girls, but also bring up a client. And it doesn't feel like there's a betrayal of family time or business time, that it organically flows in and out. And I've had people ask me before about really clear boundaries and turning it off. And I've tried to explain to people when you create the business, and it's so important to you, and it becomes a part of you because of the creation of it, taking an idea to then taking the idea on paper to then financially backing it by yourself. And then people saying, well, you're crazy for leaving this secure job. And then basically going like, I think I probably am crazy, but we're doing that. You're so emotionally tied to it in so many ways. I've tried to explain to people that it's not an inconvenience or unhealthy for it to be a part of our life. Like we obviously want to have time where if we're in a stressful season, we don't want to bring that into our home. We need to go, we're done. We're cutting this off. We have to be finished with this today. But we also don't limit our conversations about our businesses to, we don't talk about that till after 5 o'clock because most of it is exciting. Most of it is people that we know. Boone and I do a lot of work with clients in our community. And so there's a lot of overlap of just people that we know. And so I do think it can be done. I think there just has to be that awareness of, is there a balance here? Is too much of it being spent over here with this or this? And then what needs to be tended to over here that this maybe is getting a little bit too much of the spotlight? And it sounds like, especially for this season y'all are in with your girls, that y'all are doing it well.
We're trying. They're in that, like, we're in 2 different seasons of parenthood. They're in their like physical need where I feel like probably more emotional, like they need you more emotionally, and like Uber driver,
Yeah.
But it is definitely, I think for me, it's high stress, and I have to, I think about, again, social media, like it's all about like regulating your nervous system and like making sure you're in flow and I'm like, they don't have 3 small kids, like, because my nervous system is never regulated. Like my anxiety, it's always
I saw your aura ring.
Yeah, you saw my
I saw your aura ring.
My stress, my tracking. And so again, but like, and I think all of that comes down to like your perspective on it. I think I had a season of life with like balancing motherhood and business where I felt like I was doing it wrong or doing something wrong, and there must be something wrong with the way I'm doing it, or like I need to, hire something out, or I need to, figure out, I don't know.
It needs to look a certain way.
Needs to look a
for it to be
certain way.
meaningful,
Yeah.
for it to be successful, it needs to look a certain way.
And I think I realized like, no, it doesn't. Like that is robbing me from like experiencing the joy that is happening like right now. Feeling like it has to look some other way because that's what this person on social media is portraying.
Yeah.
When, we know like that's not real, and we know that consciously, but I think there's still a part of us that is constantly comparing ourselves to that. And it's like, oh, well, am I not being a good mom? Am I not being a good wife? Am I not doing that? And it robs you from like being able to just experience what you have and being grateful for that. So I feel like I'm like coming out of that season and like really entering into this just try to find like the joy in what's happening like right now, even though maybe there's another, more things I'm like striving for. And I think that's the other thing that comes in is just being an ambitious person while also like balancing your ambition with finding contentment and joy. Like that is always the hardest balance,
Yeah, for sure. And also just being one thing that and maybe this is just me in my old age of 37 is being unapologetic about works for my family and my life.
Yeah.
It does not look at all the way other people's lives do. My schedule is different. The way I do things is different. I mean, but that works for our family. That aligns with our values. That lets me utilize my strengths to support my clients, my family, my friends, my relationships. And it just wouldn't work any other way. And side note, because I feel like I need to point this out, we're in no way like crapping on social media. Social media is such a great tool to connect and to find community and to get inspired. However, when it comes to how we care for ourselves and what we see, and me and Cait had a private conversation about the health and wellness space specifically, which I'm going to do in a different episode. You've got to have a really, really thick skin and to be able to discern what is healthy, what is true, what is not. And the problem with social media and being able to have that thick skin is it's so easily accessible. We turn it on at all different states of our day.
Yeah.
So I'm not only looking at social media after I've had a really helpful therapy session and I slept 8 hours and my hormones are like at that perfect day where they're balanced, then looking and I'm able to discern, okay, we're going to go ahead and not see this. We're going to look and lean into this because this is helpful. That's not the way we consume and absorb social media.
Right.
We consume it in all different timelines and variations throughout our day, our week, our life. And it's not filtered. And most of the time we don't have that armor on. And so I think it is so, so important for us to remember that if this is not something that is inspiring me, it's got to go. Because if it's making me feel like mine's not enough, or I'm not doing it well, or I'm looking in somebody else's yard, especially one thing I have to make sure, and I don't struggle with this as much anymore, but I have to make sure that I don't have a jealous spirit. I have to make sure that I'm 100% in my heart able to go, good for her, not for me.
Yep.
That it doesn't invoke and pull out anything in me that feels gross.
Yeah.
And also not grateful for like how far I've come and my family and my story. anything that makes that feel messy and not good enough and shameful or anything like that, I really have to check that at the freaking door.
Oh, yeah.
Because if I'm lackadaisical about it and then I just keep on and keep on, it can spiral really, really quick.
Yep.
And then you can absorb that, and then you can start to carry those expectations into your own home.
Yeah.
And I mean, we all do it, but that's kind of my TED talk on social media. Is I'm not saying it's not good.
Yeah.
I'm saying you have to be so mindful of what you let in and what you don't, because it's wild out there in the streets.
It is.
I mean,
it really is.
Yeah. And I don't know if this isn't good or bad. This just is what it is. But I didn't have those visual pressures and comparisons when my kids were little. I think Instagram was coming out because my kids are older. But
when
my kids were really
way
little.
Differently.
I was like one of the last people. Me and Obama were the last people to have Blackberries.
Yeah.
Cait will tell you, y'all, I'm not fibbing. She gets it now because she's on the farm. We are not a tech savvy people out here. And so I was one of the last ones to get on board with like Instagram and stuff, but I didn't have small children. I always joke with Boone, like, if you could see our wedding pictures, we didn't have Pinterest when we got married.
Yeah.
I thought it was amazing.
Yeah.
But I mean, now when I see weddings, I'm like, oh, ours was sweet.
Yeah.
It was cute. You know, there just wasn't all of these comparisons out there.
Oh, yeah.
So what would you say is, we'll start with the positive. What would you say as a mom with young kids and somebody who owns a business and juggles both of those? What would you say is one of the most positive contributions or effects that social media has for you?
I would say for me, it is to feel like seen. For the people who I do think show up as real and like authentic, that you realize like you're not alone, and some of your even like thoughts you have and feelings you have, you're like, oh, okay, all right,
It
I'm not
offers
crazy.
that community.
Yes, like I am not the only one.
Yeah.
You know, and I think too, just the ability again for those people who are showing up that way and to not make you to help you not feel alone in it, and then also. I mean, I feel like as the resources that are out there now that we have through social media, like all the hacks and tricks and stuff that I know because of reels. And so I'm like, thank you.
Yeah.
Like the recipes. I mean, there are some very good things about it, you know? So I would say that for me, I would say that those are the biggest positives, like just having access to more like helpful information, but also, and social media being in the way. Like I know we always complain about the algorithm as like business owners usually, but the algorithm is kind of nice because it curates what you want to see. Like I really love Taylor Swift stuff right now. Like after the Eras tour, like I'm really into it. And that is all my Instagram shows me. And I love it. I'm like, yes, let me see another Eras video. Like I want to see her dancing, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like so into it right now. The algorithm knows that. And it just keeps showing it to me.
It's
you know?
supporting you in all of your needs.
Supporting me. And so I'm like, thank you. I want to see more. It brings me a little happiness. But the same too with any other type of content like that is that you're consuming and stuff. So I think that would be probably the biggest positives is like the community and then access to information that is a little bit easier. Things you didn't know you needed to Google. Right. But like you see something, you're like, oh yeah. Yeah. I needed to know that.
What mine is, food.
Yeah.
Cause I mean, it's just, I just get so burnt out and I'm like, look at you. And I would have never thought that is so easy. Mine is like the household hacks are my biggest takeaway probably. What would you say are the things that like, what would you say are the things on social media as business owner, mom, same person that you feel like you need your armor for, like you need that thick skin for, and if you don't have it, can poke at you a little bit?
Yeah, I think the pressure, like we've talked about, the pressure that it can make you feel about your own life and the just, you know, I think there's this messaging that sometimes comes out, especially as a business owner and as a mom and like other people in online business. And some of that messaging is, you know, you can have it all. Like you can have it all. Like, you deserve to have it all. Like, everything you want. And like, I think it's a great message, and I do like agree with it to a point, but sometimes I think that can make you feel shame about not feeling like you have it all, you know, or not
where I'm at isn't enough yet.
Isn't enough, you know? And I'm not there yet. So something's wrong with what I'm doing now. And I think I've realized having it all is really just your perspective of your like, I have it all right now. You know, I have it all. Like, and it's amazing. But I can quickly have a different perspective that makes me very resentful and ungrateful for everything I have.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't look like this or this or this or this. And I think sometimes social media can make you feel like you don't look like this or this. So you don't have it all, you know? So I think that's the biggest downfall. And as a business owner too, you know, I think the pressure that sometimes the things that other people kind of put out there, like a lot of in my world and of online business and female entrepreneurs, you know, one of the things which it's like two sides of the coin. The amazing thing about it is, you know, we have so many of us talking about money and how much money is being made and how, you know, what that looks like as a business owner. And I think that's amazing as women that we are able to be like open about that, where less than, you know, 50 years ago, maybe less, but
this is not a history lesson.
Yeah,
this is not a history lesson.
We don't know the years. We don't know the years.
Fact check
like
us.
We couldn't even have a bank account, you know, as women. And so the fact that we can own businesses on our own, we can make money on our own, we can create these lives where like we can be these creators for our families where that wasn't available to us before. I think it's amazing that we're able to do that and talk about it. But sometimes the narrative can come across as like, oh, I'm making this much money. And if you're not making that much money, then your business isn't successful. If you aren't making $1 million a month, you don't have a successful business, right? And sometimes that can come through too. And it makes you as a business owner, and again, it happens in motherhood stuff, but it makes you feel like you're just constantly looking for the night, like, oh, but I'm not here yet, but I'm not here yet, but I'm not here yet. And the message and really the underlying theme of all of it is it's just not letting you appreciate where you are now.
Right.
Because when I think about what I've built and, you know, we will cross the 7-figure mark in lifetime revenue, you know, pretty soon within the next couple of years or so, which is pretty good. I mean, it's very good. And less than 2% of women owned businesses ever even reach that. Right. But somehow when I get on social media and I see all these women who are talking about how they make $100,000 a month, that can make me feel like, oh, well, I must not be doing something. You know what I'm saying?
No. Yeah.
So that's the biggest thing. It makes you always feel like you're striving for more, where when what you're doing right now is enough. And it's great.
Enough. Yeah. I always, and I tell my clients this a lot, that, and this is my perspective. This is not truth necessarily, but that you can have it all, but you can't often have it all at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I am not in a season right now where I have excessive quality time with my husband,
right?
Because I'm aggressively pursuing my teenager and my preteen.
Yeah.
And we're in a season of, you know, just being with our kids and being their taxi drivers. Like me and you talked about, I can have my husband and I can have, you know, that time with him, but I can't have it at the exact same time I'm toting my kids around town. And that's important to me too. And so this idea that you can have it all can tend to be misleading, because it's not a complete and outright lie. You can't have it all, but oftentimes you can't have it all at the same exact time.
Right.
And also, do we want all of that fullness to overlap that heavily? I love seasons. I love the seasons of rest where we are almost bored out here. And I love the seasons of grind. I love the ebbs and flows. I don't want it all at the same time.
Yep.
And this idea that you can have it all at the same time and do it well. I'm still figuring it out. I'm on the same ride you are.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's true or real, because I've worked with thousands of men and women in their life and worked on balance and mindset and health and wellness. And I very rarely see them do it all at the same time and have it all at the same time, you know, so, and then going to the money conversation, one issue I have with that, I 100% could not agree with you more. I am so proud that my daughter sees me have my own business. I don't have to have my own business for her to be proud of me. But it is important for her to know, like we always tell Willow that, she asked Boone this a long time ago, specific to his company. We were just talking about, in 10 years, 15 years, all the hypotheticals of what might happen. And she goes, can girls own roofing companies? Like, she was kind of like, well, would Ori doesn't have to be the one to take it up. Like, I could take over your business, right? And we were like, yes, ma'am. You want to take this company over? Let's talk,
Yeah.
And I think that's so important that you don't, as a female, you can be the CEO, you can be the business owner. You can also not work and stay at home and run your household like the most important business that's ever existed.
Yep.
And that is so worthy and important too. You don't have to be a business owner, but like you said, for the longest, we weren't business owners.
Mm-mm. We didn't even have a seat at the table.
We didn't. And just having the option, I think, is what's so valuable and empowering. Going to the money part, though, here's my issue with these constant conversations about numbers. I've said this and I will always say this. My issue with those conversations is I'm not being sold and convinced on this service. And I don't mean service like what you're providing. Like, I'm talking about like the heart of a servant. Like, I have my business because I didn't know how to take care of myself. I didn't know how to be well. I didn't know how to allow for my brain to peacefully exist in this body at the same time. And when I finally figured it out, I knew that there were other young Kiras or men or whoever out there that were probably having a hard time too. And so it's that idea of kind of taking your misery and making it your ministry. Like, there needs to be heart behind it. Like, you took your gifts of being really personal with people, being able to facilitate plans and structure, being able to take ideas, implement it, make it actionable, then combined it with your husband's talents and gifts and made a business to serve other women and other entrepreneurs. Like, there's a service heart behind it.
For sure.
When I'm just seeing online people talk about making a certain amount of money, I immediately go, but what is your service? What is your call to change the world? What is your legacy to leave behind? Because if it's just punching numbers in a calculator, nobody's using a calculator to get that. But that's why, even if it is true, even if those numbers are accurate, I don't know how that's sustainable because I don't know what the heart is behind it.
Yeah.
And the change and the movement. And so that's kind of my itch with it a little bit. And I'm not ashamed, and a lot of times it's newer business owners and they're going to figure it out. But I think that other female entrepreneurs specifically need to be really leery of following that path. Yeah. Because I don't know how sustainable it is, because if the heart's not behind it, you're going to burn out quick.
Yeah, for sure.
Me and you are able to stay up till midnight and to grind like we do because there's a lot of heart behind it. And there's a service that, and when I say serve again, I mean, we really want to serve our clients and we want to make sure we show up for them.
Yeah.
And if there's not that behind it, you're going to burn out really quick.
Oh yeah.
I mean, absolutely. You might not be able to do it for the long haul.
Yeah. If that's what you're trying to build.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't have a whole lot of friends that are making $1 million a month.
I don't either.
And if they are, it's fine. It's not my business. I'm so happy for that. Like, I hope all of my friends are making $1 million a month. And again, if they are, they're just private people.
Yeah.
But I just don't. I don't. If you're making $1 million a month,
let us know.
Yeah, maybe just private messages.
Yeah. Give us the details.
Just the real details.
Yeah.
So one thing that I wanted to ask you, because I was just curious, because I always, I'm always asking, like, how's business? What are you doing? What's coming up?
Yeah.
Because that's how my brain is always thinking in seasons and quarters.
Yes.
But I also think that the eyes up kind of mentality in business of being really present, like you were talking about, but also having your gaze up to what's hopeful and what you're excited about is important as well. What are some things that with your business, maybe a couple things that are things that you would love to do with your business, but you have to maybe you have that internal battle of, but not right now.
Yeah.
Because the season we're in with our family, it doesn't allow that. Like things that you're like, if we were 5 years down the road, or if, we were a little in this season with the kids, this would be my next, like, hell yeah, with the business. But you're not there right now. What are things that like keep you up at night excitement wise that you're like, I'd love to be able to do this?
Well, I think we're entering into a season where we are opening up a little bit more to things that have been on that list for the last like 5 years. So like I'm at the end of that 5 year on some things as far as like building out more like digital offerings that aren't like our one-on-one done for you like service for people who can't afford to work with us in that way.
She's talking about having less of me.
Yes, that
less Kiras.
Less Kiras. But again, like being able to impact more people, right?
Yeah.
And scaling. So that's important. I think the other thing that we're still not in a season yet, and maybe we will be one day, that's really exciting to me. And Allie, a mutual friend of ours, we've talked about this. Something that we've talked about is having something like brick and mortar, like a brick and mortar studio, and a brick and mortar place for, I think of women entrepreneurs, but it can be any entrepreneurs. I'm not like against men or anything. That's just who typically in my world.
We love you guys.
We love guys. We love all the guys.
You guys.
And we think you're doing great things. But my heart is there, particular for women, small businesses and women entrepreneurs. And so to have like a studio that is set up for people to come record, that's like aesthetically pleasing. I mean, a lot of those studios that exist are just like ugly. I mean, there's a ton of studios in Nashville, but they're ugly and they're not meant to be like aesthetic, which is what a lot of times we're looking for. So to have a space like that, but also I see it as like space for community and to just like connect more in person with people, again, being like an online business owner, but there's a lot of just people in our area and women. And so to create like a space like that where they have, where we can do some of those things in person is something I'm kind of looking towards, but it's just not the season right now. There's not a way that we can, at least right now, like balance that. Among everything else.
Well, and this real estate market's awesome right now.
Oh, it's so awesome. We
best.
Definitely want to do that. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so there's a lot of limiting factors right now.
Do you guys have ideas of like where? I know we're in Middle Tennessee is vast.
I know. What I keep thinking of is like the Brentwood, Nashville area, like that, like where they kind of overcross. But even where we are, because we're like outside of Murfreesboro from you, I mean, even in this kind of conglomeration too, I could see it as well. Definitely, we don't want to be like downtown though.
How long did it take you to get to your house to my house today? 5 hours?
50 minutes.
Oh, that's not, I thought it was going to be way over an hour. Okay.
No, 50 minutes.
Yeah, downtown. I mean, I would imagine that would be pretty extravagant.
I mean,
priced.
I started a business, so I don't have to drive downtown
same
for
things.
work. So,
yeah. But in the same
but also,
realm,
money wise and just logistically.
Yeah. But also, we've talked about this before. When you own your own business, it can be isolating because not everybody knows the world that you live in your day to day. Like I remember when I had my corporate job, or even in college when I was working in medical clinics and working as a nurse's aide, I had coworkers every day that I was going in and I was with all the time. And even though your husband has an office at home, my husband has an office, and I do have my studio in town that I still go to, I have to be really intentional about seeking out interactions and lunch dates and coffee and Zoom dates with, and so I do love that idea of, just more almost like, I don't know, co-working is the right word. Different than that, but something that kind of meets business owners there.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I think it's a great idea. Keep me posted. Keep us posted.
Yeah, I will.
It is a great idea though. And you need to shout out to my friend Shelby Fannin, who's my photographer. You need to pick her brain about her photography studio.
Seriously.
Because she did this. She kind of took that same model from Nashville, and she has a beautiful photography studio here. It's really, really great. So I need to hook the two of you up for sure.
Yeah.
You would love her. Was there anything else that we didn't cover about business and momming and not feeling good enough but also feeling good.
Yeah, but also feeling good.
But also being really happy. And
it's just it's a spectrum, and I think we're similar where I have an all or nothing. I can tend to have an all or nothing mindset and just to keep like reminding myself that it's not all or nothing. It's always a spectrum. It's always an ebb and a flow. And
it's a season.
It's a season. That's literally the natural like way that our world works and that God created the world to work.
Yeah. And especially having children, because how you were talking about, you're meeting so many physical needs with yours. I'm in a season where the physicality of my parenting isn't as intense. I don't have to be on my feet and in the same room
and carrying them around.
Yeah. And making sure that there's no choking hazards.
They're not killing themselves.
Right. They're pretty upright and safe for the most part now. But I have to, where I'm coming in is I have to be so alert and aware of like their hearts and their minds and their
what's coming
community, and so it switches and the energy changes of kind of how you have to exude yourself, but it's all in these different seasons. And then as soon as one season's over, you're like, I want to carry you up the steps like I used to, but I physically can't because you're bigger than me. You always want those old seasons back. Yeah. But it definitely just ebbs and flows. It is so cyclical and but you're doing a good job.
You do.
Oh, thanks.
I appreciate and I think that's too, with social media and the online space, I've been able to connect with so many women,
I know
that I might not have ever connected with or known. And
I know, and
I have quite a few women now in my life that I feel like are just a little bit ahead of me in motherhood, and have like their example and have their support. So, I think that's another positive too, to be able to connect and have those people who are a little bit ahead of you,
Absolutely. Yeah. And seeing what is going on in people's lives. And like one of my friends, Sonia, she lives in Canada. She was on the podcast. We've never actually like hugged each other, but we have this beautiful, amazing friendship through texting, through Zoom, but also I get to follow along her life that I don't actually get to see in real time on social media. And it makes me feel like I get to see what her children look like.
Yes.
And when she's doing races around the world I get to follow all of that. And so there are really beautiful, sweet aspects of social media, but like with anything, there has to be that restraint and you got to guard your heart.
You do have to guard your heart
100%. Well, I love you. Thank you so much
for having me.
Coming to my house, setting up the equipment for the podcast, and then also being the first in-person guest that we've had at the farm too. I love you.
It's so fun. I love you too. And I love the farm. This is like, I think you need to have like farm days for people to just like come experience the farm.
I mean, I don't know.
It's so fun.
Well,
just me.
Just you.
Just me.
That's what I was like, are you just saying you?
Yeah, just
okay.
Me. Yeah, okay.
We'll do a part 2 really soon. Yeah, no. I'll have some friends out, but we're not open to the public, guys.
No,
we're not open to the public. Well, Cait is going to have all of her information in the show notes because they will be doing the show notes. So this will be the easiest prep for a podcast guest ever because I won't have to give you a bio for yourself. So if you want to connect with Cait, she's going to have all of that information there. She'll put all of her handles, website, and then is there anything else that you want our listeners to know? Anything that you have coming up business-wise that people need to be on the lookout for?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, if you have been wanting to start a podcast or have any questions about it, you can always feel free to DM me. Open book. So let me know. Or if you're just needing, camaraderie and being a mom and a business owner, come follow along. I have a podcast with my friend Jordan. It's called Ambitious Moms Club. And we talk a lot about these types of topics. So go listen there.
And we'll have that in the show notes. And she kind of undersold herself on the support of a podcast because she took this podcast with me from an idea that I'd had for years and start to finish launched it with me, every single aspect. And so the level of support and ideas and creativity and the way y'all do things is so top notch. For as warm and inviting as you are, the way you run your business is so buttoned up and professional and like with excellence, truly. And so now that you guys have heard more about her backstory and her life behind the scenes, it means even more because you know how much she juggles. But if you need support in the podcast space, her and her team are next level. So
Thank you.
All that info will be in the show notes. All right, you guys, thank you so much for following along today and joining me and Cait. And I'll see you next time on the Art and Yoga and Wellness podcast. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.